Hey everyone, welcome to my review of the Sigma 12mm f1.4. And you know, it's really funny how shots like this in movies that used to cost a lot of money are now accessible to a lot of people like us. And really, I attribute that to the advancement of technology. I'm shooting this on a relatively inexpensive lens, the Sigma 12mm f1.4, on a relatively inexpensive entry-level camera, the Fujifilm XM5. This is really more of a foreword before we get into the video, but when I saw what this lens was capable of, I knew I had to give it a shot. And it's definitely going to be opening up a lot of possibilities for me in my creative workflow. With that being said, let's check out the actual review. Hey everyone, Omar here, and welcome to my review of the Sigma 12mm f1.4 for the Fujifilm X-mount system. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I did a first look video and was super hyped about the lens, but now the dopamine has worn off. I've had it for about 5 weeks now, and just so you know what direction this review is going to go into, this is Sigma's copy of the 12mm that they sent me. I actually got to go return it in a little bit. Here's the little pouch they send it in. And this is my version that I bought myself because that's actually how much I like this lens. Definitely gonna be my new YouTube lens. And by the way, check out the packaging. I don't know when they switched over from the white boxes, but I like this new unboxing experience here. The 1740 comes in a similar format, which is what I'm recording myself on right now. Video for that to come soon too. It's nice material. Maybe it'll be a bag I actually use. And now, here's my copy, which, look at them side by side. Kind of makes me want to have an A and a B cam set up, but yeah, okay, Sigma. I'll drop this off. You guys will get it back today.
A few moments later.
So I went over a lot of things in my first impressions, my first look video, which I'm going to link in a card above, recommend you watch it. Plus I have a ton of video samples up there as well on how I think the average person would probably use this. Makes for a great photo lens, but I feel like this one leans a little more towards video shooters. I'm not really a guy who enjoys taking wide photos, but it is handy and I did try it out and we'll talk about that a little later. As far as design goes, it looks like all the other contemporary lenses where it's small, black, clean look. Difference is that this one is fully weather sealed. My previous main YouTube lens, which we'll still decide what the future of this lens is, has been the Sigma 10-18 for the past, I want to say year, maybe a little over a year. And I love this lens. But on a crop sensor camera, you just don't get a lot of that background separation, a lot of subject separation, where with this lens, I've already uploaded, I think, 2 or 3 videos where this has been my main video lens, and then you're probably going to see it quite a bit moving forward. This lens offers something that a lot of APS-C lenses don't, and that is that you get a ton of background blur on a wide lens, and typically that's reserved for full frame glass. Weather sealing, huge plus, very wide, and takes a simple 62mm thread. Let's see if you can actually read the number there. And I'll go over a couple of other things that make this lens pretty impressive. That, of course, led to me spending money on this, which I swore I would stop buying equipment that wasn't tied to work, and this is now the second purchase this year, so 3 strikes and you're out, right? Despite the fact that this is an autofocus lens, the manual focus clutch is actually very nice, which, I mean, it's not a macro lens or anything, but you can get pretty close and get pretty decent separation if you're out walking in nature. And because of the small form factor of the camera, this actually is an ideal travel lens, especially for video people. I know that this is now the lens that I leave the house with, although I'll keep something else in my backpack as well that's a little more telephoto. Huge fan of this. Just, I cannot overstate how much I like this lens. I don't think I've ever bought a lens I was still reviewing. That's a first, and I paid full retail. Like, this is, the people at Sigma are probably finding out about this at the same time that you are watching this right now, but that's how much I like this lens. I mentioned this in my first look video, but I'm pretty sure they were thinking of Fujifilm shooters because we got this guy right here. And it's nice and clicky. Let me pop off the 1740 and put this on. You'll see how wide this gets, and then also how bokeh-licious the background is. You'll understand why I want this as a YouTube lens. Okay, this definitely needs a neutral density filter on right now. And yeah, so check it out. I mean, this thing is awesome. And then, yes, you see all the headspace and everything here, but all I gotta do is this, and check out that background separation on this ultra wide lens. Like, I can touch this, it's this close to my face. Let's see how close I can get. You get an idea of the macro capabilities. I don't think that's one-to-one, but that's pretty decent if you ask me. It's been a while since I bought a lens just for myself, but I'm sure I can figure out a commercial use for this too. So I guess this is like a good time to start talking about the optical performance of this lens. And the first thing that I want to bring up is that in full frame terms, full frame equivalency, this is an 18mm lens on Fujifilm and Sony cameras on the Canon RF, because it has the 1.6x crop. I think it's like a 19.2, something like that. And it's a f1.4, but the rendition is like an I want to say 2.1, something around there. And if you're like me and you want to see the full frame equivalent of it, and you typed in 18mm f2 lens full frame, you will have discovered that this lens does not exist. I took this lens with me recently while I was shooting yet another video on another lens, which you'll see coming up, which is also a Sigma lens, but a very old one, to a work colleague's band. And they're shockingly good, by the way. Trouble Man, I'll link whatever I can find below. You guys should definitely go check out their page. Get them on Apple Music. I'm a huge fan of their work and they're amazing to see live. But I was doing mostly video with that one, then I decided to take a couple of clips with that. This was like a creative community collaboration thing where a bunch of artists got together to play in front of everyone, do a little PR, connect with the locals, things like that. And I brought this lens with me because I didn't know what the venue was like. And I'm pretty happy I did, because they had like this column, apparently this place is famous for this, that kind of blocks the view for the most part. So if you ever wanted to get a shot of the stage, you needed a pretty wide lens. And because it was also dark, it really helped to have a pretty fast lens. I'm glad I took it with me because I thought it would be good enough with a phone, but photos would have been horrible, in all honesty. Took a couple of video clips, took a couple of photos, and I was shocked when I brought it into Lightroom because those photos are tack sharp, wide open, f1.4, super sharp. Now, the corners and stuff, I don't actually care about that because I think you have a larger problem if people are looking at the corners of your photos. But both for photo and video, it was great to capture the entire environment. I had it on the Fujifilm X-T5, which is 40 megapixels, so I had a ton of room to crop in as well. Color rendition, contrast, phenomenal. When I was outdoors and shooting in the really bright midday sun, huge mistake for myself because I was sweating buckets at the time. But when I was doing that, I had like almost no ghosting unless I was pointing directly at the sun. Even then, it was kind of like a stylistic ghost. It didn't like ruin the image or take over everything there. Very easy to cover as well if you had the pedal hood on. I don't think you're going to toss a matte box onto this, but worst case scenario, you just kind of like put your hand over the lens and you'll be able to get whatever shot it is that you're looking for. So normally more affordable glass, let's call it, which this definitely falls into that category. When it comes to flaring, it'll wash out everything because everyone uses what? They use cheap coatings. But Sigma is a company that's known for its optical excellence. They make really high-end glass. They've made great glass at pretty much every price point for as long as I can remember. And they also have their own cameras as well, which really differentiates them from a lot of other companies. And everything about this lens was so good that like, it's just, you really start to think like, wow, what a shame that they can't make full frame glass for Canon or for Nikon. And they have that limit to 15 frames per second on Sony cameras. And really after seeing that BF, I know there's a bit of a sidebar, but I think the world is ready for Sigma to release a true hybrid camera. And I think a lot of people are looking forward to something different. And as evident by all of their camera releases really, I think Sigma is really good at doing things different. The beautiful, gorgeous, amazing photo autofocus on the Sigma BF being one example. The Sigma FP, which came out right around 2019, I want to say, years ahead of its time, especially with the external recording to SSDs. Back then, the SSDs, like, I got one here somewhere, like these, they used to be super expensive, very affordable now by comparison. Sigma FP is actually, from a value proposition standpoint, a very interesting purchase you could make nowadays, but again, topic for another time. Let us know if you guys are planning on releasing a hybrid to compete with everything else, because I think a lot of us would be on board for that, considering the fact that Sigma makes glass like this that just other manufacturers don't do. As far as breathing goes, focus breathing, I mean, if there's any, I really can't catch it. Again, this is a 12mm and that's pretty wide, 18mm full frame, so you're probably not going to get a ton of breathing anyway. So for video shooters with APS-C cameras, this is probably going to be one of those must-buy lenses that everyone's going to end up having on their kit. For photography, as far as look is concerned, I mean, if you really look, you might find some in high contrast scenarios, but there really wasn't anything for me to look at. I think every now and then I'd see along like chrome reflections, but as far as purple fringing goes, as far as any optical problems, any issues, any weird softness, none of that. Now, another thing, of course, that I did have to bring up is the fact that this lens does not have any type of image stabilization, but almost all Fujifilm bodies have IBIS, so it kind of doesn't matter. X-H2S pairs really nicely with that. I'm too lazy to take off my grip, so I use it predominantly on my XM5. Also, I'm an old man, and my style of shooting content, video, doing anything is pretty much just setting it down, or standing in place and then yapping to the camera right there. So I don't really have any issues when it comes to jitters, micro jitters. I don't do walk and talk. If I'm gonna do something like that, I'll probably use something like an Osmo, but that's just not my style. If you plan on doing a walk and talk, I did that for a little bit while it was on the DJI RS4. Obviously, it's going to work pretty well there. It might be something that you might want to take into consideration. If you're going to some kind of convention, if you're out for a day and just shooting wide video, it's pretty light. It's not all that heavy. It's probably not going to be the ideal setup, but I think a lot of people can just adjust their shooting style just a little bit, and you really won't come across a lot of those issues. And that's if you're using a body without IBIS, which, again, this guy has no IBIS. I think maybe the XS20 might be a nice camera to pair with this as well because it's so small, but it's just, I don't have that camera, so I can't really compare. I do know that I do enjoy it quite a bit on the X-H2S, and I know that I'm willing to do things that are a little more unreasonable than most people. So if I do need IBIS, if I do need stabilization, if I know I'm going to be moving a lot, I really don't have a problem putting it on this camera. I've actually even considered getting the Canon copy, but I'm going to hold off for a second because they do make it for the RFS mount, the crop sensor mount, and I do shoot a lot of video, which if you go in Super 35 mode, you get really nice 4K footage on the R5C and probably the cinema line as well. The C80 and the C400, which I've got my eyes on right now, but those tariffs got to chill out a little bit. And that makes for a very, very lightweight setup that you can work into your workflow on that system. Pretty sure it's going to be the same thing on the Sony cameras. Really, if they made a full frame version of this, I think it would blow everyone's mind. Because if you were to get something like a SnorriCam, you could get those really cool POV spider sense shots using a really light consumer setup like this. Hey guys, Future Omar here. Yeah, so I said that line and then I thought to myself, well, why don't I have that set up? Because I've done this shot a couple of times before, but I used what I like to call the clench cam, which I'll leave up to your imagination to figure out what that is. And this is actually just a lot simpler. And just to show you what I'm working with right here and just how close is this to me. So here, wow, already touched the lens. Here's the 12mm f1.4, and it's attached to this Glide Gear SnorriCam setup. Usually the limitation is going to be the weight of the setup that you have here, but because of how light this one is, this is actually a pretty easy shot to knock out. Back to the video. And you have to remember, Fujifilm shooters, F-Log2C, which right now only the X-H2S has, along with the Eterna Cinema camera, it was actually developed for the Eterna Cinema camera specifically for skin tones. So you're going to get a really high quality image coming out of a really small camera like this. It just opens up a ton of mounting options, and you really do have to think of the real world use as not just looking at all the specs of the camera, but just taking into consideration of the size of the lens and the size of the camera it's going on. Like this one, this lens in particular, this is also a really easy car lens for me. I can toss a cage onto this thing, stick it onto my windshield, and I've done it already, and I have a really wide, really high quality shot. If you've ever rigged a camera onto a car, you know how difficult that is. Because this lens is light and the cameras it goes on are light, you can do things like those car shots, interior car shots, POV shots with relative ease without really getting a ton of equipment because the size allows for it. So you really do have to look beyond just the spec sheet of something like this and really take into consideration the overall package. And then you get a better idea of why this lens is such a big deal, which is why I ended up buying it for myself. I know it sounds like I'm getting carried away here, but I want people to understand the possibilities that a setup like this opens up. Because even though I bought this as a personal lens, personal item, keep it separate from my, from the work stuff so I don't drive myself crazy, there are going to be scenarios where this is just a better option to use than like rigging up a helmet and everything to take a shot on the Canon cameras. And F-Log2C is really easy to color match to C-Log 2. couple that with the fact that the X-H2S has one of the best video sensors on the market today, and it's very likely that we're going to see the Eterna 35 next year. The Eterna 35 being a Super 35 sensor, probably the sensor here. I am basing that on absolutely nothing but a hunch, and I think that's why they broke the release cycle of the XT5, the XT6 this year, because they're working on the processor and final algorithms for that new chip that they're gonna roll out to all the next generation cameras. Basing this on absolutely nothing other than what I would do in this market. So if I'm right, Fuji, I think you and I need to talk. And if I'm wrong, well, it's probably what you should have done. Now, after saying all that, how am I going to use it personally? Obviously, it's going to be the talking head videos, but also I am going to be doing my POV shots using this lens in particular. Previously, I would be doing those shots on my iPhone, and honestly, the ProRes grades very well, and it's very easy to color match to my other footage. But it's even better when you get a larger sensor. You get a slightly more premium feel when it comes to this stuff. I'm going to be dropping it in some future videos here since I'm using it right now. And I actually, you notice it's dark outside. That's because I had to return Sigma's lens before FedEx closed. And I can very easily do handoffs and just post a story directly for live events. And then, also for my own stuff. I'm allowed to have a little fun there. I think you should too. And also, it's just nice knowing that because it's weather sealed, this can be one of the lenses that I take with me all the time, regardless of where it is I go. We just moved an hour forward here. Now it's dark at 5 o'clock, which is kind of ridiculous. Like it's 5:23 right now, and it's pitch black outside. Not a fan. But now I can take this with me and I'll be able to take decent quality video without too much noise. So obviously I've been singing the praises of this thing. So what are the negatives? Realistically, none. I can't come up with anything negative about this thing. 12 millimeters, it's wide enough to not really need image stabilization. Image quality is crisp, autofocus is responsive, everything resolves very well at 40 megapixels. I can shoot 6.2 open gate, which I'm doing right now, and it looks great. The lens currently, sans any future tariffs, as of, what are we? November 2nd. Let me double check we can go through any price increases here. So it's $629 USD, which I think really is a fair price for what this is. As far as who this lens is good for, I think it's going to be fantastic for video shooters. Pretty sure it's going to be good for astrophotography. Might be a little too wide for landscapes unless you want to separate some detail from the rest of the background. That being said, I'm not a landscape shooter, but I don't see myself using this for landscapes. Portraits, I think it's too wide, but my buddy Hunter Hart manages to take incredible portraits with wide lenses, so I'm going to shut my mouth when it comes to that. You should definitely go check out his channel because it's just blows me away. And as time progresses, we'll find out what else it's good for. I'll do an update maybe in like a year or so. Links to everything below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Shoot me a message, drop a comment, let me know if you need any answers. And as always, catch you in the next one. See ya.